Hello everyone, welcome to the next video for integrations. So in this video we'll learn about some prerequisites or some basic must knows before going into integration. These are some of the topics that you must be knowing before understanding integration properly. So let's get started. So the first thing is objects. So what is an object? An object is a data structure that allows you to store collection of data as a key value pair. It is one of the most fundamental types used to represent and organize data. Okay. Now, what are keys? Keys are also called properties, and these are always strings or either symbols. While values can be of any type, they can be of type string, arrays, numbers, functions, or some other objects as well, right? So, like you can see in the example written here, we have created a person object and it contains multiple keys like name, age, is a student, greet. These all are keys in this object. And their associated values are Alice, which is a string, age is 30, that is a number, false, that is a boolean, while a function. Now the question arises how to object how to access these object properties. So there are two ways to access these object properties or keys. The first one is the dot notation and the second one is the bracket notation. So if you can see in the example at the bottom left, so the first is person dot name. This is the dot notation. So we can access the name key of this person object using this person dot name kind of notation, right? So it will return Alice. So what is the syntax? First we have to write the object name and then dot, then we have to write the key name. Like in this case, we have person as the object and name as the key. So it will print Alice. In the second one, we have bracket notation. So in this, we write the object name and then brackets and then the key name. So we have written person and then the key, that is age. So it will return 30. Similarly, we are calling this function greet function using the dot notation again, person dot greet. We can also update or add properties to a object. How we are going to do that? Like if you want to update this age, right now the age is 30 for this person. I want to update it to something else. So we can do it using person dot age equals to 31. If you can see on the example, so it will update this age key to 31. Now the next time if you will print person dot age, it will return 31 and not 30. Similarly, you can also add a new property. Like you can see in the original person object, there is no key with the name city. So you can add a new key and the syntax for that will be person.city equals to New York. So later if I print person.city, it will print New York. So this way you can add a new property to an object as well. So this was all about objects. Next we have URL, Uniform Resource Locator. So what is this? It is the address used to access resources on the internet like web pages, files, APIs, images, etc. So you must have surfed internet, right? And you must have seen a, a thing like this HTTPS, then dots, and then two, something like this. You must have seen this on at the top of your web page. So this is basically a URL. Now let's break down what each component of this URL actually is. So the first component is the protocol. So like in our case, we have HTTPS, two dots and then two backslashes. So this is the protocol. There is another protocol that is HTTP. HTTPS is a bit more secure than HTTP. After protocol, we have the domain name or the host name. That is the actual website uh, you are accessing. So in our case, we have sitechecker.pro. So this is the host name or the domain name. After that, we have path or path parameters. So the quality of path parameters is that it will start from backslash. So anything written after backslash, right? We have knowledge base in our case, that is the path parameters. This path parameters tells the path to the actual resource, to the actual data, to the actual table. Like in our case, it is knowledge base. So it is telling us the path to the knowledge base page or the table, right? After this path parameters, we have query string or query parameters. So query parameters always start from a question mark, and then we have a query or a filter. So this query is nothing but a filter. So once we reach the path, once we reach the resource through path parameters, now we can apply some filters to that table or to that resource, and that query or that filter will be coming from the query parameters. Like in our case, the query that we have is name equals to article and topic equal to SEO. Then the last thing is fragment. This is actually a lesser used thing, but it is there. So this fragment acts as the anchor in the page. So it tells the server that I want at which place I actually want to view. Do I want to view the top? Do I want to view the bottom? Or at which place do I actually want to view the page? So this is all about URL. Coming to our next topics that are request and response. So request and response, what are these? Let's start with request. So a request object. So request is an object in itself. With what I have told you in this slide, object slide, a request is an object only that refers to the structured data sent by the client to the server to perform a specific operation like retrieving data, creating data, updating data, or deleting resources. Okay, so if you can see at the diagram below, we have a client and we have a server. So this client send a request to the server. It is requesting something. What it is requesting? It is requesting any operation like I want to get data, I want to retrieve some data, I want to create a new data, or I want to delete some data. So these kind of things a request object contains. Then comes the response object. So a response object is the data returned by the server to the client after the client makes an API request. So initially the client will send a request to the object to the server. In response to that request object, the server will send a response object to the client. What it will contain? The response object will contain everything the client needs to know about the result of the request, including whether the request is succeeded or failed and any data that is being returned. Okay, so let's say I am the client and I called the server and I asked the server to retrieve the incident details. So I will send a request object to the server and the server will return me a response object. Now what this response object will contain? This will contain whether my request was succeeded or not. If it is succeeded, it will also contain the incident data. Okay, so this way the data flow between the client side and the server side works using request and response objects. HTTP status codes. HTTP status codes are 3-digit numbers sent by a server in response to a client's HTTP request. They tell the client whether the request was successful, failed, or requires further action. HTTP codes are grouped by their first digit. So based on the first digits, there are multiple categories that are in which these codes are grouped into. So let's say if my code starts with 1, it comes under informational category. If my code starts with 2, it comes under success category. If my code starts with 4, it comes under client error category. So similar to this, you can see the graph. It has all the category according to the first digit of the status code. Now each code has a meaning of its own. So let's say I have 100 as the status code. So what does that mean? That means that the request is received by the server and it is processing the request. 200 means that the request was successful and the server has passed some response successfully. Similar to this, 400 means that there is a client error, that there is some error in the request object that we are sending to the server. 500 means, or 501 means that there is a server error, that is server failed to process a valid request, that is the request object that you have sent is all good, but there is some internal error in the server which is causing some issue, and that is why the server sent a 500 or 501 status code. So this status codes basically tells you whether your request was successful, failed, or there is some other action that is required. Next we have HTTP verb. So HTTP verbs, also called as HTTP methods, they define the type of action a client wants to perform on a resource or on a data, right? So like I told you that the client send a request object to the server. So inside that request object, there is the information about the verb as well. So whether you want to get the data from the server, or you want to post some data to the server, or you want to update some data, or you want to delete some data, right? So whatever operation that you want to do, that is specified by the HTTP verb. Next we have headers. So headers are key value pairs sent along with the HTTP request and responses. They carry metadata or the extra information that helps both the client and server understand how to process the request or interpret the response. So there is some additional information that we want to pass in the request object. So that additional information we pass it through headers. Next is JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation. So what is JSON? So JSON is a lightweight, human readable data format used to store and exchange data, right? So whenever a client is communicating with server and a server is communicating with client, we are not passing normal objects. We communicate through JSON or XML or some other formats. Now the question arises, why do we need a universal communication format, right? Like JSON or XML. First thing is that. So let us understand this with an example. So let's say uh, I have a browser, right? So we write JavaScript in browser or client side. And then we have a Python server, right? Now we want both these systems to communicate with each other, right? So if a JavaScript send a JavaScript object to Python, Python will not be able to understand that object because the syntax of objects in both these languages is completely different, right? So similarly, if let's say we have a Java server and we want it to communicate with the Python server, that won't be possible because the object syntax in Java is different and an object syntax in Python is different. So to solve this problem, we need a universal format in which all the systems should communicate. And why JSON is chosen for this purpose? Because it is very human readable. You can see in the screenshot here that how easily you can read the JSON. What are the keys? What are the values? Okay, so it is very human readable as well as it is very lightweight. That is why we use JSON as a universal format for communication. Then we have pagination. Okay, what is pagination? Pagination is the process of dividing content into separate pages. Pagination refers to breaking up long list of items like articles, products or search result across multiple pages. Instead of showing everything at once, only a subset is shown per page, right? So let's say I am client and I want to request some data from the server. Now let's say I want to request the incident data from the server. Now there can be multiple incidents. There can be a large number of incident data present in the server. So if the server sends all the data at once, it will create a lot of load on the server as well as on the browser, right? Plus the response time uh, will go up. So this is not a good thing. So that is why we implement pagination. What it does, it improves the performance. It loads data in very smaller chunks, which enhances the user experience as well as it puts less strain on server and browser. Now, pagination is commonly handled using query parameters like syspam underscore limit and syspam underscore offset. Earlier in this video, I have told you about query parameters. Query parameters are nothing but the filters that we apply, right? So syspam underscore limit tells us how many records to return per page, while syspam offset tells us how many records to skip for pagination. You can see in the example as well, we have a HTTP verb get, that is, we want to get some data from our server. Then we have the URL, and inside the URL, you can see after question mark, we have written our query parameters. That is syspam underscore limit equals to 10 and syspam underscore offset equal to 20. What does this tells you? This tells that syspam underscore limit equals to 10 tells you that return me 10 records per request, while the offset parameters tell you that skip the first 20 records and start from the 21st record. Don't give me records from 1 to 20. So this is what syspam underscore offset equals to 20 tells you. So this way you can improve the performance of your APIs and you can improve the performance of your integration by delaying the response times. So that is all for this video. Stay tuned to our playlist. Thank you.